All right, so pre-requirements. So the pre-requirements are fairly minimal in the sense that you should be comfortable with the Unix command line. But by that I mean you should be comfortable with logging into a remote machine with SSH. You should be able to navigate directories using the shell, edit files with VI or Emacs or whatever is your favorite editor, and that's pretty much it. I don't require anybody to be an expert in a given programming language. The demo app that we will see uses various different languages. So we don't expect any specific development or operations knowledge. You need to know a little bit of containers and Docker things, but only a tiny little bit. Basically, if you have already run a container at some point, for instance with Docker run, but it could be with something else, that's perfect. If you have already built a container image, that's perfect. I don't need you to know anything else, because we're going to introduce all the other things that we need. In particular, I wanted all this to be independent of Docker. You will see that during the whole day, maybe we will run a couple of Docker commands, but mostly out of for debugging purposes. Maybe we will do like a Docker PS or Docker this or Docker that. But everything that we will do is going to be independent of Docker, meaning that whether I'm using Kubernetes backed by Docker or backed by Cryo or Containerd or anything else, this will apply exactly the same way. There is some theory about learning that says that there are 4 different ways that we can learn. Some people learn by just like sitting there and listening, and they kind of understand the concepts, and then they feel ready to tackle that in the real world. So generally these people do well in university and college. There are some people who need to see how things are done, and they just look at someone and they see, okay, that's how you do it. Perfect. Now I know how to do it. And then there are some people who need to do things by themselves, like by doing, we have the muscle memory that helps us to remember how things are done. And there is another method, which says that the best way to learn something is to actually teach it to other people. Because when you do that, you realize that you really need to know way more than you thought. Personally, I think I do best with that last method. I try my best so that during this day, we will leverage the 3 first methods. So I will explain the theory, explain how it works as much as I can. Then I will show you demos, and then I will invite you to reproduce these demos in your own environment. You don't have to, it's up to you. Like for some people, it's really helpful. For some other people, it's just a distraction. So do what works best for you. Unfortunately, we can't use the 4th way of learning, which would be for each of you to teach what you just heard to the person next to you. But if that's what you need, you can do that later with your coworkers and peers. You will see in the slides a bunch of gray rectangles like this with exercise. So these are the exercise and labs that we will do and that will invite you to reproduce in your own environment. The first exercise is fairly easy. We need to open the slides. I suggest that you do it. Again, you don't have to, but I suggest that you do it because by opening the slides, you will be able to follow along more easily. You can navigate the slides with the arrows. You can also type the number of a slide. For instance, if you want to go to slide 100, you can type 100, enter, and it takes us to slide 100. So this can be useful if you are far from the screen or at a weird angle and you want to see what's there, or if I just passed a little bit too quickly on a slide and you want to see what you missed, or if there is a command that you want to try but you don't want to type it entirely, then you could copy paste it, for instance. So there is that. The second thing that I invite you to do is to open the chat room. So once you are on the slides deck on slide 16, you have this Gitter link here, and by clicking here, we land in that chat room. Obviously, I won't be able to simultaneously deliver the slides and do the demos, answer questions, and look at the chat room at the same time. I can't. But AJ is going to monitor the chat room for questions. So if you have questions, feel free to ask there as well. don't hesitate. I know sometimes we can feel reluctant to raise our hands and ask, so like, that's fine. It doesn't seem like it, but I'm also a kind of shy person, so I often hesitate to ask questions. But you can do that in the chat room if you want. Really, I invite you to do so. So where are we going to run our containers and our Kubernetes clusters? I don't know if this cultural reference really works in the UK. I don't know if Oprah Winfrey is well known here. But there was this emission in the Oprah Winfrey show where, she gave everyone a car. So, everybody was invited to look under their chair, and they had like a car key, and it was like, you get a car and you get a car. Everybody gets a car. I can't give cars to everyone, unfortunately, but I can give you Kubernetes clusters, at least for the duration of the workshop. You should have on your table a little piece of paper like this one. If you can't find that little piece of paper, please raise your hand, and then AJ is going to hand you one of our spare little pieces of paper. This paper has connection information to your own private training environment. It's a Kubernetes cluster that we've deployed just this morning. Everybody has their own, and you will be able to do the labs in that environment. We will do almost everything by connecting to the first node. Yeah, so why are we doing that? Why are we using these clusters, and why not using some local Kubernetes installation? First, not everyone has a machine that could run Kubernetes locally. Most of us are lucky and have fairly modern machines, but perhaps you have a machine that still has like a 32-bit CPU, or doesn't have virtualization extensions, or maybe it's locked down by a pretty strict IT policy and you can't install Minikube or Docker Desktop, etc. So to find something that works everywhere, we just connect to remote cloud machines. Another reason is that when we're going to download container images, it's like 60 people in this room. We have 4 nodes clusters, so that's like 240 machines. When these 240 machines are going to pull images from Docker registries, if we were to do that on the conference Wi-Fi, that wouldn't work really well. So by doing that on cloud machines, since the network bandwidth in the cloud is infinite, for some definitions of infinite, we won't run into that problem. Okay, I added links here to some SSH clients should you need one.